The first time I ever had shakshuka was on our honeymoon in Banff, Canada of all places, and those flavors have embedded themselves in my memory ever since. If you've never heard of it, the simplest way to explain it is that it is a Middle Eastern / Northern Africa dish that usually contains a mixture, that's the definition of shakshuka, of tomato sauce, onions, peppers, and various spices, and depending on where in the world it's being made, those spices will vary. And then it usually has eggs nestled into little pockets within that amazing sauce. My favorite part is that it can be done in so many different ways, and what's more, it can be served as breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And since I tend to always do things a little bit differently here on the channel, I'm going to be adding short ribs that I sous vide to the point where they are just completely shredded and falling apart. Let's get started. First, we're going to get our short ribs in the sous vide. You're going to want 4 to 6 thick short ribs. Try to avoid the ones that are thin because those are mostly bone. Dry them with a paper towel. Our seasoning blend is going to consist of about a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper, about half a teaspoon smoked paprika, about half a teaspoon of black garlic. Mix that together and then season your short ribs liberally on all sides. Place them in a bag and vacuum seal them up. Now I'm going to set my sous vide to 165 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to place them in that water bath for 24 hours. This temperature and length of time is going to provide the perfect atmosphere that will render down all of those incredible fats and connective tissues that provide short ribs all of its decadent flavors, and it's just going to shred beautifully with almost zero effort. Perfect for setting into a stew, or in this case, shakshuka. After about 24 hours, remove them from the water and let them rest in the bag for about 20 to 30 minutes. Using 2 forks, shred away and just remove the really tough parts from each short rib. Those aren't very pleasurable to eat. Shred it all up, including all of the fat that really should almost disappear into the meat as you shred it. Set that all aside. Now let's get our veggies and spices prepared for the shakshuka. You're going to want a large, deep pan for this recipe. I would stay away from cast iron and stick with stainless steel. Tomato-based sauces tend to leach out flavors into our cast iron pans and also break down the seasoning that we spend so many hours perfecting on our cast iron. So let's stick with stainless steel. Now I ended up using 5 eggs from my backyard chickens for this recipe. You do you, but I'd suggest 4 to 6 if you're following this recipe exactly. For my vegetables, my goal right now is to use all fresh veggies from our garden. It's exploding and there's no better flavor than picking your vegetables straight out of the garden. We're gonna go with 6 green onions. Our regular white onions aren't actually ready yet, but our green onions are delicious. Separate the white bottoms from the softer green tops. You're gonna want about a cup worth of green beans, 2 cups worth of diced zucchini. This zucchini was a real chonger. I'm going to be using this gorgeous heirloom tomato as a garnish, so let's just dice this beauty up. Now our base sauce will be our fresh from the garden Pomodoro sauce that I made in our last video. If you missed that, go check that out. It came out incredible, and you're going to want about 2 cups of that. You can also use some canned tomato sauces as well, or in a real pinch, use some Rao's sauce, or Rao's, however you want to pronounce that. We're also going to use a 1/4 cup or more of peas. Unfortunately, this is all we had left in the garden, so we're gonna use this 1/4 cup. Now let's talk herbs and spices. And we're gonna use fresh mint from the garden. I'd say you're gonna want about 6 to 10 leaves for the sauce, and however many left for a garnish later on. You could also use some fresh parsley if you like as another garnish. I am. For this shakshuka, I really want to incorporate one of my absolute favorite spices, saffron. Did you know that saffron costs more than gold by weight? It's such a special spice that it can only be harvested by hand from the stigmas of the Crocus sativus flower. It takes an enormous number of flowers to produce a small amount of saffron. You could think 75,000 flowers or so in order to produce just about 1 pound of saffron. So gold typically runs in the neighborhood of $60 to $70 per gram. Saffron can easily exceed $100 per gram, and this saffron comes from a single source in Afghanistan. So you're gonna want just a pinch of saffron, because not only is it expensive, but it's also magically powerful in your dishes, so you just need it in small quantities. Take that small pinch of saffron and place it into about 2 tablespoons of warm water for about 10 minutes. We also want 1 teaspoon of incredibly smoky smoked paprika and a teaspoon of cumin. Now let's move to the stove. Let's heat up our pan on medium heat until until some splashes of water beat up and don't evaporate. Wipe out the water test and add in a nice amount of extra virgin olive oil. Let's start with our zucchini. Season that with salt and saute for roughly 3 to 4 minutes until it starts to soften and obtain some color. Now we're gonna add our beans, the whites of our green onions, and half of the green tops. Stir, and now we're gonna add our peas. If your pan seems a bit dry, feel free to add a little bit more extra virgin olive oil. Cook for another 3 to 4 minutes, and now the aromas should really be building in your kitchen right now. After that 3 to 4 minutes, let's add our Pomodoro sauce and stir that to combine it all up. Add in the saffron with the water, and then stir, and then we're gonna add in our cumin and smoked paprika. Stir again. Turn the heat down about to a medium-low, and let all of these flavors really get to know each other and meld together for roughly 5 minutes. We really just want a low simmer here. Now add all of that incredible short rib and stir that. Come on, look at that. Let these flavors meld and simmer for another 4 minutes. Now we're gonna add our mint. I like to stack all of the leaves in my hand and then give them a nice smack. I saw a bartender do that once while making a mojito, so now I do it too. Then just tear them up and sprinkle them throughout your sauce. Stir it up. Now we're going to add our eggs. I want you to carefully take a spoon and create little pockets or wells in your sauce, which really should be quite thick at this point. Then crack your egg and try to plop them right in those wells. Now here's where I messed up. You really do want runny yolks with your shakshuka, and if you don't like runny yolks, you can cook them through, but you really do want them runny. And I underestimated how they were cooking in my sauce, and I actually overcooked them here. So I made a mistake. Mistakes happen. This should take roughly 7 to 8 minutes to cook the eggs through and keep the yolks runny, so really try to keep your eye on it. We all make mistakes, but even if you end up overcooking your eggs like I did here, it's still gonna be delicious. Once your eggs are done to your liking, remove your pan from the heat and let's serve. The great thing about shakshuka is you can just place the entire pan on hot pads in the center of your table and let your guests just jump right in and serve themselves. But since we have toddlers, I went ahead and plated them all up. It is a hot pan after all. Go ahead and garnish the entire pan with the rest of your green onions, the diced heirloom tomato, and more mint and parsley if you like. I also added some crunchy flake salt on the top, and then I added the short rib bones back into the pan, really just for appearance. Go ahead and plate it. Be sure to get yourself an egg or 2 or 3. You can serve this with some super crusty bread like a great sourdough, or you can use some pita bread, but we ended up serving this with Korean perilla leaves from our garden, which provided a really nice kind of basil / star of anise kind of flavor. Really nice fresh pop to go with the savory spiciness of this dish. Or just feel free and dive in with your fork. This shakshuka will be so rich and hearty that all of your troubles will just melt away while you're eating it. Enjoy it with your loved ones or just hammer it all down by yourself. I'd love to know if you've ever had shakshuka. Tell me in the comments where you had it, and if you make it at home, tell me how you make it. As always, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.